the Big Easy Basketball Podcast.
Today on the Big Easy Basketball Podcast, we have an absolute superstar of a guard, Tad Dufelmeier from the Knox Raiders NBL1 side. Welcome to the podcast, Tad.
Hey, thanks for having me.
That's all right. Now, Tad, we'll jump straight into it. Tell us a bit about your basketball journey.
I've been playing, since I was 3 years old. It's kind of a family thing. Dad played professionally and came out here and played in the NBL. Ended up staying. My siblings played growing up. My sister closest to me played professionally as well. So, it's just kind of always been a thing. Been an active family, sports family. So, as long as I can remember.
That's it. So you grew up in Canberra?
Yeah, grew up in Canberra. Lived there until I was 17. Moved to the States.
Yep.
And I went to school in the States for a little while. So
yeah, tell us a bit about your time in the States.
I went to junior college in Salt Lake City for 2 years, and then I went to Concordia Irvine for 3. So it was a great experience. 5 years over there. My family's all from there, so it was nice to get over there and be in that culture and that environment.
Yep. And this is your first season with the Knox Raiders?
First season with Knox Raiders. Played against them a number of times and had some intense battles.
That's it. So you used to play for Hobart?
Used to play for Hobart. That was my first team coming back to Australia, and definitely got some guys and connections down there. So there's still some love there.
That's it. Now, what's your joy and what's your most treasured part about playing for the Knox Raiders now?
Probably the environment. There's a kind of standard that's been set, from the guys previously that have been here, and what the ambitions are of the club and how they go about things. It's probably my favorite part.
Yeah. And who was your favorite player growing up?
Probably Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson's definitely one of those, and in more recent times, probably Derrick Rose. So.
Oh, nice, Derrick Rose.
Yeah.
Yep. That's it. Now, what's your game day habits?
It's pretty simple. A lot of people have a routine. I guess I unintentionally have one. Is just kind of getting up, making sure I have a pregame nap, eating at certain times before the game, and I try and actually watch something that doesn't really have to do with basketball in terms of something that's kind of thought provoking and takes me away and challenge me in other areas.
Okay, and what keeps you motivated throughout the season?
I think goals and ambitions that I have set before the season, kind of referring back to those things and going about it, and the joy I have doing it as well is pretty easy to stay motivated for me. So it's never really been a thing that's come into question.
Yeah. And where do you see yourself playing in the future?
In the future, I've always said I want to take it to the highest level as possible. Obviously, the immediate future, I want to get back into the NBL on a full-time roster spot and try and make an impact there. Obviously, it's a legacy thing for me, and I'd love to outdo what my dad did for sure.
That's it. Well, a bit of I was going to say sibling rivalry, but bit of homegrown rivalry there, isn't it?
Yeah, a little homegrown rivalry. I've talked to him about it every now and again, and he gives a smirk and humbly lets me have it. But it's definitely unspoken for sure.
That's lovely. Now, Tad, what sort of advice would you give the young player that wants to get into they're playing basketball, but what do they need to do to become that elite athlete?
To become an elite athlete, I think, it's been spoken about before by, a number of great players and stuff, is kind of falling in love with the process. The process of getting better, learning the game, being a student of it, working on it, and enjoying that process of going through the growing pains of, not being an elite player and then trying to get to that level and not focusing on the results, because it's not always going to pan out exactly the way you want to. But if you have the right things in mind and you keep the main thing, like things will turn out pretty well.
Yeah. Outside of, just a question there, outside of your father, did you have another mentor growing up with basketball?
I would say it was mostly him, to be honest. A couple mentors. I would say coaches along the way. It was just kind of taking, things, whatever lessons I could from whoever I encountered. I played a lot of basketball growing up against people, and you play pickup in the States and stuff like that. You just kind of pick up little tidbits here and there. So I wouldn't say anyone in particular, but yeah, definitely Dad would be, the easiest reference point.
That's right. Now we have a little bit of a fun with this, and we put you on the shot clock.
Okay.
You ready?
Okay.
The shot clock.
All right, Tad. Do you have a nickname?
Probably Taddy, I guess, is actually longer than my actual name.
Fair. Yeah, a nickname that's longer than it is. That's all right. When you're traveling, do you like a window or an aisle seat on road trips?
Definitely a window. Need more leg space, but I can lean on it.
Now, you're a guard and you get more leg space. Do you ever get the emergency row on the planes?
No, not usually, because I'm not very tall, but I have long legs, so it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah. If you did get that emergency lane, would you give it up for one of the centres or the forwards?
For sure. The big fellas got to eat on and off the court.
Fair enough. Mate, do you watch any reality TV shows?
I don't actually watch them, but I saw this question, and shout out to a former teammate of mine who's on Love Island right now, actually.
Who's that?
Shouts out to Chase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely. Are you going to watch him when he's on there?
I've seen a couple clips here and there, and he's doing his thing, so it's pretty awesome to see.
All right. Now, if you're a sitcom character, what would your catchphrase be?
That's a tough one. I don't know. What's happening? I don't know.
Oh, what's happening?
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Yep. The strangest thing you've ever eaten?
Strangest thing I've ever eaten. Oh, I'm pretty picky. I guess it's strange for in general a lettuce sandwich when I was younger because I wouldn't eat anything. So
just
straight lettuce.
Bread, lettuce, bread,
and salt. Yeah.
and a bit of salt.
Yeah.
Well, that's different. That is strange. But if you applied for a job as an Avenger and you get rejected because your superpower is a bit boring, what would the superpower be, and what would your character name be?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know how boring it is, but the ability to translate anything.
What, like languages?
A language, like gibberish from like babies or something, on animals as well. I don't know if that's necessarily boring, but
Well, I don't know how it would help the Avengers save the world. They got this baby talking.
Yes.
But what would your character be called then?
Chat TD.
Chat TD.
Yeah.
If you could have an animal as a sidekick, what would that animal be?
Probably a cheetah, my favorite animal. So
That's the second time the Knox Raiders players have mentioned the cheetah. I'll tell you, that's a good one though. You become a famous DJ. What's your tag name?
DJ Doof.
Have you had a current teammate that had to cook dinner for the team? Who would you rely on to cook dinner? And then at the other end of it, who would you just not ever want to eat something they've cooked?
Ooh, rely on? I mean, maybe we'll go with Kelly, because I've seen Kelly chefing up at the house. He seemed like he got a little something in his bag. Definitely not rely on. I'm probably go with Ryder Cheeseman. I feel like he might blow up the kitchen.
Catch fire. That's it. If you're on a desert island and you had to spend time with one of the players, who would the worst player to be stuck with on that desert island?
The worst player? Oh, I'm gonna go with Henry.
Henry Saul?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I feel like we wouldn't get a lot of things done. Yeah, we'd be struggling to figure it out, and we'd be talking to each other in circles. We go on tangents for sure.
Love it. Tad, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast today, and it is an absolute delight having you around the basketball stadium with your smiles, and definitely on and off the court. You're a great asset to the organisation. So thanks for coming on today.
I appreciate it. Happy to be here.